parents suspected their dog and installed the camera. Here's what they saw. A huge problem. As you may know by now, the situation was getting worse and worse. Missy would stay the entire day and night in the house and she refused to leave the baby. All she would do is sit next to the crib and look at the baby. Bree knew that pit bull dogs were dangerous and strong. Can she hurt the baby? Anthony would spend hours talking to Bree about this. He would say that not all pit bulls are bad or dangerous. It depends on many factors and situations. At that stage, Missy stopped eating. If a dog does this, it means that something seriously wrong is the cause. They had to do one thing fast. Another strange and weird situation. Bree wanted to try something. She would leave Missy in the dining room and lock the door of the nursery room. Missy would probably stay where she was and not worry about the baby. This wasn't what happened. In fact, the dog would cry for hours. Only after Bree allowed her to enter the room, she stopped. Again, she would sit next to the crib and look at the baby. There is a problem, obviously. Then, something else appeared. Danger. One night Bree was busy with the baby and she was too tired. But she had to go to work immediately. Luckily Kelly was there. While Bree was close to the room she heard something bad. She didn't even believe that she heard this. Bree came back to the room and saw Missy growling at the nanny. Kelly wanted to take the baby from the crib, but the dog didn't allow that. She was really angry. Bree removed the dog and said, "I'm sorry, I don't understand why she's acting this way." Kelly believed that the dog was hungry. Missy wasn't hungry. She must go back. That day Bree thought about the dog and she realized one thing. She must talk to Anthony and try to find a possible solution to this problem. The dog was too aggressive and too anxious to stay in the house with the small baby. Sadly, they had to talk. The couple talked and they started considering giving Missy back to the shelter. The safety of their baby was at stake, so they had to do something. They had to help protect Michaela and solve the problem. Now was the time for one strange fact. The couple started to prepare for giving Missy back to the shelter. But then Anthony realized something important. The dog didn't react like this all the time. Missy would be anxious only when Kelly was in the house. They knew that something is very strange here and that they must find the solution. After talking, they decided to install a camera in the room. They have to see what is happening when they are not at home. The video and photos they saw were so bad that they became depressed. Was their baby suffering the entire time? The couple would wait the entire week and start watching the video on the weekend. It was early in the morning and Michaela was still sleeping. Bree took her tablet and loaded the video. Everything was perfect at first. Then it started to change. Kelly would feed the baby in the morning, put her back in the crib, and move to a couch in the next room. She was looking at her phone. This was fine. The next thing that happened wasn't fine. It was so bad you may not believe it ever happened. But it did. Are they bad parents? Soon Michaela started crying. Bree hoped that Kelly would jump from the bed and go to the room where the baby was. She would help the baby and feed her, comfort her, or help her in some other way. Instead, Kelly would remain on the couch and was still looking at the phone. This was bad, but it became even worse. Kelly would wait for minutes while Michaela was crying. She didn't do anything. When the baby started crying extremely loud, Kelly would go to her room. She started yelling at the baby. Missy would start to bark and growl at the nanny. They had to do something. The first thing that the couple would do happened on Monday. Kelly would come to work to take care of Michaela and Bree, and Anthony would go to work. As soon as she entered the house, Anthony showed her something. He shows her the video. Do you want to know how she reacted? Kelly felt a bit awkward at the time and surprised. She didn't know that the couple had installed the cameras. Anthony told her to leave their home and never come back. She cannot do this to Michaela, and she is an awful person. The worst thing in all of this is that Kelly wasn't really upset by all of this. Bree and Anthony had to do something else, something Kelly will hate. Are they going to hurt Kelly? The worst nanny in the history. The two were unable to watch the video anymore. They stopped it and they started crying. Bree was really upset and Anthony had a hard time trying to comfort her. They trusted Kelly and this is how she is giving them back the trust. She could hurt Michaela. Both of them knew that something must be done. Something serious and bad must happen to Kelly and it must happen right now. She was a bad nanny and their baby was suffering because of that. Now is the time for Kelly to suffer. The dog changed immediately. As soon as Kelly left the house, Missy changed. She became a wonderful and nice dog once again. She didn't bark, growl, or do anything else. She would sit in the house and play the entire day. Everything was much better, but there was one problem. Bree and Anthony knew that they must react and they must do something. If they keep their mouths shut, Kelly could hurt another baby. They were really upset because of all this. This story didn't go as planned. They had to start with the second act. Is it obvious what they will do? They had to do it. After talking for days, the couple realized one thing. There was only one solution to all of this. They must press charges. There is no way they are going to let all go and do nothing. They were hurt more than ever before. It was even worse due to the fact they were hurt by the person they trusted. The couple would start looking for ways, how they can press the charges as soon as possible and what they can actually do. How Kelly will be fished and how they can maximize all of that. How can they make sure Kelly will never work as a nanny again? It is impossible. Soon after talking, the couple would go to the police station. They would press charges and they would leave the police to do the hard work. Kelly was a bad nanny and they had to do something about it. Then, something else happened that wasn't planned. It was strange actually. Kelly was surprised with all of this and she didn't expect the couple to report her. She actually believed that this wasn't a big deal. Well, it was. The actual process was far more complicated than anyone would believe. Will the couple win or lose this legal battle? 6 months later. Luckily the couple had the video they showed to the jury. This was a game changer. The whole process lasted 6 months, which was a good result for a case of this type. Another issue was the cost of all this. The couple had to pay thousands of dollars just to get things right. So, what was the verdict? The couple won the battle and Kelly was sentenced. She got 2 years of prison time, which was too weak, a sentence by Bree. The best thing was the fact, no other children will be injured by Kelly. What about Michaela? Will a new perfect worse nanny appear? She needs help. The couple was in a bad place. They needed time to recover. Luckily Missy was there to help them. On the other hand, we have Michaela who still needed a nanny. The couple didn't even consider looking for a new nanny at this point. What if they make a new mistake, an even worse one? However, they soon realized that the baby needed a nanny. They both were working and they needed help. The couple started looking for a new nanny. This time it would take much more and they would be more cautious. Soon, they found one that looked promising. Betty is here. After months of looking around, they found Betty. She was a pediatric nurse who had decades of experience. She was a lovely person and she was great with Michaela. The baby seemed to like the nanny as well, which was great at first. But this wasn't all. Betty was great in her job and she loved the family. The family loved the nanny as well. Yes, the couple had countless cameras all around the house. They would notice if something was wrong. The only thing was the fact Betty had a huge and dark secret. Do you want to know what the secret was? Plot thickens. For a couple of months, everything was perfect and there were no problems. The couple really loved Betty and she was great with the baby. She was a part of the family now. Then, it happened. One day the couple noticed something that was bad, really bad. How they could make a mistake again, and why this happens to them all the time. Is it worse than the previous time? True motivation. Betty worked as a pediatric nurse. She would care for children who were injured and who needed help. She was doing this for 6 days a week for over 40 years. It looked like a perfect nanny. She would know everything about the children. The problem was her true motivation. It wasn't as it looked. It wasn't just to help children and be close to them. There is something else, something strange and shocking that motivates Betty. More details. Betty loved to talk, and the three of them would have small talk all the time. They knew that she was born in Canada and she married a successful stockbroker back in the day. They had a beautiful daughter as well. It looked like a perfect life. The couple believed that he is a great woman and there is no need to worry about anything. Until they realized one more thing. This fact wasn't something that Betty would share easily, and it was a game changer. Still no problems. There were no problems with Betty. She was great with Michaela and the baby loved the nanny. It was excellent with kids that made a lot of sense. Women who love kids and who worked their entire life with them had the experience and expertise to be great nannies. It turns out that there was another reason why Betty was so good with children. It didn't have anything to do with her career or with her job. The real issue was completely opposite, and Bree and Anthony would still learn something about it. What happened? One Sunday night the couple decided to watch the camera feed again and see what was happening in the week past. They hoped that there will be no problems here and that Michaela and Betty agreed perfectly. Missy loved Betty as well, so there were no red flags. The couple would watch the video for a long time and then they saw it. It was a small thing that made the whole story strange and weird. They were unable to believe what happened. The mistake. The couple watched the video for hours and everything was great. Betty was taking good care of the baby and there were no problems. This time Betty would immediately help the baby as soon as she started crying. Everything was fine until Bree heard one sentence. While Michaela was crying, Betty said, "Aren't you just the cutest baby in the world, Sarah?" This was bad and the couple knew that there is something wrong with all of this. They had to know more. What does this mean? New confrontation. Bree and Anthony had to confront Betty and they had to do it as soon as possible. The couple didn't want to make a new mistake that would be even more severe for the baby. One day when they arrived back at the house, they sat with Betty and started talking. As soon as they started the question, Betty started coyoting. This wasn't the answer the couple was looking for, and it made the whole thing even more severe and weird. Why was Betty crying? Sad truth. Betty has been crying for a long time now and the couple still wanted to know the answer. Soon, she started talking and the story was bad. This is the worst thing that Bree and Anthony would hear in a long time and they were shocked. Betty had a daughter back in the day. She was 6 years old and she went missing. There was no hope for the family and she never saw the daughter again. Yes, the couple tried to do everything they could and they looked after the child for years. But no help. She was lost. The name of the daughter was Sarah. Happy ending. Bree and Anthony were choked when they heard the story. But they didn't want to take everything away from Betty. They decided to let her stay in the house and take care of Michaela as long as she could. Betty was impressed with this and she loved the idea. Betty was happy with the idea and she stayed in the house. She would take care of Michaela as much as she could and she became a huge part of the family. Michaela loved her nanny and the two became separate. An aunt. Eventually, Betty became an aunt of the baby. The two were together as much as possible and they had a great time. They loved each other and Michaela will grow up and still have Betty next to her. This was an amazing advantage Michaela had. Betty stayed in the house and took care of Michaela. But she stopped calling her Sarah. She realized the truth. Betty would never leave. Michaela and Bree and Anthony know that. They are confident in Betty and they live here as well. Like, share and subscribe to AMJ channel. Thank you for watching our video.